Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the IndieZone. My name is Kathy. On the 7th of November 2024, the defense's September 20th, 2024 motion for Mr. Kohberger to be permitted to appear at all public hearings in street clothing was entertained by the court behind closed doors. This was a closed hearing. It began at 8:30 a.m. and it is noted on the order of proceedings for November 7th, 2024 hearing as item number 1. Beginning at 8:30, motion regarding street clothing at public hearing closed. We went over this motion in episode 281 of our continuing series on the Idaho 4 case. We also went over the temporary order that the court granted Mr. Kohberger the right to wear street clothing, if you will, which is basically a suit and tie, how he appeared in Latah County for public hearings in episode 284. And although the hearing at 8:30 a.m. on the street clothing issue was behind closed doors, I think we can make an educated guess that the court granted the September 20th, 2024 hearing, because if you watched the proceedings live, or if you've watched them replay, or if you've seen any of the episodes that have been included in media reports or in any podcasters or YouTubers, you'll see Mr. Kohberger appeared for the public hearings beginning at 9 a.m. in his quote-unquote street clothing, suit and tie. So it appears that this motion was granted, even though there is no order on the docket as of the morning of November 8th, 2024 on the East Coast when I am recording this episode of the IndieZone podcast series saying so. But again, we go back to the original motion. We go back to the order granting temporarily Mr. Kohberger the right to wear street clothing for the case management conference that was held after the change of venue. And we know in this case that what Judge Hippler wanted to do was to hold a closed door hearing to satisfy for himself any sort of security issues would not be compromised if Mr. Kohberger were appearing at hearing in something else than his jail garb, which requires additional procedures to carry out. The state of Idaho did not object to this motion at all. If you look at the public docket, there is no response in opposition. They filed nothing. So this was literally the court entertaining the motion, hearing from certain people in law enforcement and others, and then based on what we saw in seeing Mr. Kohberger at defense table in street clothing, it appears that this motion was granted. This will now conclude this episode of the IndieZone. Thank you as always for joining us here today.